Okay, so welcome to this new episode of the Energy Bridge podcast. We are very happy to having you here, Corby, if I can
yeah, of course.
call you that. We were here 1 month ago. We talked about what KW Solution is doing, and we were very impressed. And especially you as a leader of this amazing team, being Austrian entrepreneurial. So we are very happy to know more about you and having you today.
We are on a journey to understand about what innovators are doing in this region. And one of the first innovators that we are talking to are you. We are very excited to have you.
That's a very big pleasure. So Raul, Daniel, thanks a lot for visiting us and thanks a lot for bringing up this initiative. And I'm highly impressed about what you're doing with the Energy Bridge, because I can imagine that it is quite challenging to ramp such a project up, and especially if you're doing it in such a professional way. So it's great to have you here.
We really appreciate your work. Thank you.
So to start a bit and to let the community know, you are, entrepreneurial spirit, right? And I was impressed that you studied international business, but you went into the energy field and you studied in Innsbruck. Mm-hmm. So how was it to study there?
So it was not so much planned to study in Innsbruck because I was born in Upper Austria. And I could have gone to Salzburg or as well to Vienna to study there, but somehow I ended up in Innsbruck at the University of Innsbruck, so it was quite nice to study there. I did quite quickly understand that I like the way of studying at the university in Austria, at the public university, because you're pretty much self-determined and it is quite liberal, right? So you can choose.
Also free.
It's quite, what did you say?
The tuitions are waived. You don't have to pay for the education.
You don't have to pay.
That's amazing.
At least in the beginning, you don't have to pay. And I like to study there. Innsbruck is a beautiful city, so it was a big joy.
And then we knew that you studied also in Thailand, in Bangkok. So what's the two different worlds completely? How was the study there?
So first of all, I was studying 1 year in Thailand at Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, and it was mandatory for me because I was studying international economics and business, and I have had to go 1 year abroad, and I chose Thailand because I did not go to a further or a second Western university, and I think it was super exciting for me because it was something like a synthesis of being Western, but as well being Eastern. We have had many colleagues from China or from other Southeast Asian countries, so many new perspectives, and it was interesting.
Wow.
And did you take any special course there, or it was general international business? How was it?
So I took, overall speaking, I took 12 courses in 1 year, in 12 months. So each month, one course. So it was like, because many people are saying you're going abroad for doing your studies. And that's quite comfortable and easy. And in my case, it was quite challenging and demanding. So as said, 12 courses. With exams, midterm exams, a lot of exercises that we have to do. And
good. And all this experience influenced you to be entrepreneurial, or it was just in yourself?
Natural born is, I don't know if this can be naturally born. Basically not. So to be very honest on that, I was not so secure about what to do in my career path. So I was studying business and economics, and that's many other people are doing that as well, right? And then I was starting my career in consulting. So I started at EY Parthenon, and this was quite linear as well, considering that I have been studying economics and business, right?
Yes.
But I guess this entrepreneurial spirit comes from my early childhood, because I was grown up at the farm, and this has, I would say, quite a lot to do with about how you think about work and about work ethics as well, because it was like when you have a farm, you have animals, right, and you have a land which needs to be somehow managed, And you do not consider working hours in a static way, but you know that there is a certain amount of work which needs to be done. It's hard work, and you are. I know many people are not considering this as being self-employed, but by running a farm, it's purely self-employment.
And so, from the entrepreneurial spirit, how would you move forward to energy? Why did you choose energy as your main business?
That's quite interesting as well. So, because we were two when we founded the company, so Benjamin and I founded the company, and it was like that. So we did already know each other from our time in Innsbruck. So we were both studying at the University of Innsbruck, and we met again in Vienna. So to say, and we said like, okay, it would be really cool to be self-employed. Yeah. But it was not like the moment that we have had this super...
No, the dream, just to have the intention at the beginning. Okay.
We did have the intention that we would like to be self-employed. And based on that, we thought like, and we brainstormed, what could we do? What are we good at? And what can we ramp up and build? And then we ended quite quickly in doing something with tech, green tech, because we thought like the world is somehow in danger, and it is good when someone is doing something against that, right? Reducing emissions, etc.
A very interesting period as well when you started in 2021, just after Corona, or we were in middle of Corona, I would say.
And so Corona was quite challenging because to jump into that topic, with KW Solutions, we quickly went the direction of offering B2B charging products, right? So our target groups is industry, is retail, but as well hospitality, right? So we were selling, or we still sell, fully fledged packages of hardware, of operations, of management, of doing all the services, all the billing, all the maintenance, etc. And we were selling this quite strongly to hospitality as well. Okay. And you can imagine that this is not so convenient when you are jumping from one lockdown to the other lockdown, because no one of these people were investing in charging infrastructure. They were shut down. It was super challenging in the beginning.
You started in 2020? Or?
We started in 2021.
And the initial part you were telling us about how you come across from consulting to you had the idea and you ideated and then you got into founding KW Solutions, right?
Yes.
So, and just how was it challenging? Because now that we have been living in Austria for a while, we understand that people are very smart here. Okay. But entrepreneurship is something, it takes a lot of, I think, a lot of grit to start. A lot of courage, of course. And because when you're already living in a very social, secure place and you were working for EY, it's a very reputed company. How was the journey to move, forming your own thing?
So quite difficult on multiple levels, because on an emotional level, it's quite interesting in the beginning. So you have this idea and you start to build structures around this idea, right? So you start to build this corporate or this company. And then you start telling people, what are you doing, right? And the first thing that people are telling you is, oh, isn't it similar to ABC? Right? How can you compete there? Yeah. So why are you doing this? So this is challenging. So in the beginning, no one takes you seriously. Yeah. No one at all. People are saying, oh, that's a nice idea and we wish you all the best, but in the end, no one takes you seriously, right? That's as a first thing. And on a second level, it was quite challenging because coming from consulting, you have not somehow measuring it as high or low, but you have a certain amount of salary, right? And then the certainty of status, of salary, of career path, right? It's quite strongly determined. And then you say you start at zero with no salary, but on the other hand with many expenses. And everything is difficult because founding a company is like, so I guess when you do it the first time, you're not so prepared for that.
Yeah, it's like being a father. It's like having a baby when you grow it, right?
I wouldn't know, but
it's like having a baby, and you consider your company as a baby sometimes as well. The evolutionary aspects around it. And it's so hard because when you come out of a corporate, it is so much substantiated. Your salary, the administration, all the hierarchy, so everything is determined. And then you start from zero. You do not have an office. If you have your first client meetings, you always propose that you have these meetings at your client site because you do not really want to admit that at my office site does not exist, right? Yeah. My office site is my living room. And I'm fully remote.
And after forming the company, how long it took you to get your first office?
I guess nearly a year. No, a half year or between a half and a year, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, but amazing. So what challenges do you have now, would you say?
So maybe going from then to now is 3.5 years later. So I would say that we have built and formed a good company, a well-structured company, which is starting to get substantiated as well, which is important because I think it's very important to have a logic in everything what you're doing, and this logic needs to be built up in many aspects. And what are the challenges now is so we are still growing, so we are increasing our amount of people who are working in our team, who are working for KW Solutions. Right now we are 16 or 70 people working here. And we are facing, of course, some challenges which are mainly driven by the market which we are acting at. Because electric vehicles and all the sustainability topics are not so trendy right now. It was a bit more trendy a few years ago. Right now, sustainability and reducing CO2 emissions are important, but not super important, right?
Also given the political context. That's why it leads to the passion for energy transition and passion for energy. What drives you there? Like, to have the grit in the evolving market where it gets very challenging, and the passion that you have for it, if you can go about that.
I think it's interesting to somehow closing the loop, because when we started, it was like we were rather driven by the idea of getting self-employed, of doing corporate, of doing some business on our own. Right now, I'm 110% convinced of what we are doing. It's so important that people are working for mobility and energy transition. That's so important. We need to protect what is around of us. We need to protect our environment. And this is so interesting and exciting for me. We found a way where we somehow were crossing all these sustainability aspects with a certain kind of, I would not say capitalism, but a certain kind of doing business with that. So this green tech area, green tech business is super exciting because we are working in that way that we say we would like to make green technologies beneficial for the end customer. Yeah. Not only on a sustainability level, but as well on an economic level as well.
Actually, one of the favorite sustainability meanings that I have heard, they have 3 pillars. They have to be environmental friendly with social impact, but also have to be a business. We cannot be naive. It's amazing what you're doing, that you could merge these 3 pillars, so you can say that you are not greenwashing at the end. It's a proper business with green tech and contributing to tackle climate change, that we are in the same road too. This is what it drives us. So it's amazing.
And on that note, if you can go about KW Solutions, and if you could tell us about what you do at the company.
So basically, we have basically 2 segments where we are operating at. We have a segment which is called CPO, so charge point operating. I already mentioned it in the beginning. What we are doing there is we are operating charging infrastructure for others, so to say, for our customers. Our customers are owners of hotels, so hospitality sector, industry leaders, retail companies, because what is the requirement that they have? They have the requirement of somehow rolling out multiple charging stations, and all these charging stations need to be operated. They need to have the data. they need to have a possibility of balance the loads. They need to have the possibility of doing billing. Because if they have a third party, credit card should be possible, roaming cards should be possible, and all this stuff needs to be somehow bundled and needs to be somehow dealt with by ideally an external party, which are we, right? So that's the first business part. And the second business part goes a bit more in a specified direction, because we were building quite quickly our own backend, which is called Charly. And what the Charly environment is doing is basically we try to fully optimize charging transactions for our end customers. And here we have two customer segments. Customer segment 1 is real estate industry. Customer segment 2 is transportation industry, so heavy transportation industry. And just to give you an example of real estate industry. So when we are building a project for one multifamily house, that means that the whole multifamily house is in our Charly environment. If, let's suppose you would live in such a multifamily house, then you would buy a charging station and you would be connected to Charly. And Charly would help you to fully optimize your charging cycle every day. That means we're working with dynamic prices, so dynamic spot prices, which are changing from hour to hour. So we ensure that you have the cheapest price. First layer. Second layer is net cost structure, because we always need to be careful about how we increase the net requirement, because net requirement needs to be paid. That's very expensive. We need to reduce it and we need to make it somehow continuously low in the end. That's in real time. Second parameter. And third parameter is your individual charging behavior. So we would ask you, Rahul, when do you need your car? On Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday? And you give us this information, and based on this information from you and from all the others in a multifamily house as well, we can consolidate everything and we can fully optimize.
Wow, so it's personalized too in every behavior in a multifamily environment. That's amazing. Very cool. And that's, you are making it on-house. It's a KW solution innovation. Amazing. Super.
And Corby, I want to just go out a bit to understand the value chain where Charly comes in. And so, for example, I have a EV. I buy an electric car. I live in a multi-housing society and I need charging infrastructure. So as a B2C customer can also have a charging infrastructure, of course, if my housing society allows, but you are going to deal with the housing society as a whole, right?
Yes. Because there is, I need to just introduce one legal frame here. You can have an individual charging station, but you are somehow incentivized by the law to have a collective charging infrastructure, because individual charging stations are not somehow limited when it comes to the net operation requirement, and they are not connected with the others. That means the requirement from time to time is not consolidated and not somehow limited. It's always one peak to the other. And this is not good. And that's why it goes more and more in the direction of somehow connecting all the charging stations in one family house, in one multi-family house. And that's basically what Charly is doing. And you as an end customer, it's not so easy, because it's always required that if you have a multifamily house with different owners, they need to take a decision on that. We are investing in such an infrastructure, and then it's possible. So, which makes our lead cycle or our sales cycle most efficient in when multifamily houses are built, so newly constructed.
The design is much better.
Because then you have top down, right? They say the construction company says, yes, we're gonna go with this, and that's basically straightforward. When multifamily houses are already existing, then it gets a bit more complicated, because you always need to have a consolidated decision. And still there are many people out there who say, electric vehicles, I don't like it.
So in this Charly environment, do you have also a chat? The multifamilies can talk each other to organize themselves? or it's more individual input from each family in one?
So the platform of chatting is basically the property management company, because they are setting all the products and all the logic and the information up, and then they're sending it out. Then you have a certain time frame of 4 to 6 weeks where everyone can input on that.
Oh, that's amazing. So why did you come up with this Charly idea? What was the need that you saw?
The need, it was like, so right now if you have a look at the competitors' landscape, it feels like that they have the understanding of one size fits it all, right? They have a certain backend, comes strongly from a direction of billing only. Backend providers focused pretty much on how to bill, but they did not focus on how to optimize.
Okay. Yeah.
And we said that if we want to compete in this market substantially, we need a certain selling point on the one hand, and on the other hand, the selling point is always the economics. Yeah. So we convince customers if we say we help you saving money on the one hand, and on the other hand, by somehow getting incentivized of using cheap price windows, we help the net infrastructure getting a bit more relaxed. That's win-win.
Yeah, that's something related also with a big topic that we have seen in different conferences, which is demand response. Because we have variability in generation with renewables, but we also should turn also in demanding response and to make it flexible. So vehicles, I think they are going to have a big role into this demand response and how to optimize it. So it's very impressive what you are doing with Charly, and it's on-house innovation. So it's amazing. So how do you see the KW role in this new for saying in the CPO market? How do you see yourself in the sector?
You mean based on multifamily houses, Charly?
No, just in general about the charge point operator, how the activities that you have been doing in, and maybe if you can explain a bit, some of the projects that you're doing right currently.
So I see us in general as a company which is driving innovation. And obviously, many companies are saying that from themselves. But in the end, I believe that because I know that there is no other product at the market which is doing similar or which is capable of doing similar things. Many competitors, especially publicly owned energy suppliers, they have external backends, and they're using external backends in the sense of one size fits it all for each and every requirement.
You go to the customer and you personalized. So in this example of the Grow Hack, if you can tell us a bit about this project to explain the process.
So Grow Hack stands for Groß Glockner Hochalpenstraßen, quite a long name, right? No, but what they are doing basically, they are owning as well as maintaining all the streets which are going in the Großglockner. So Großglockner is the highest mountain in Austria.
Okay, where you went this week? Or
Yeah, we have been there this week.
Is it the highest mountain?
Yes, it's the highest.
Okay.
What's the altitude?
Excuse me?
How high it is?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I think it's 3,800 and a bit more.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so it's the highest mountain. And it's quite impressive, and it obviously the area and the environment has certain particularities as well as streets, right? There is infrastructure, and the Grohack is responsible for the infrastructure.
Wow.
And what they are doing is, and this is quite impressive, they are not doing nothing in the sense that they say, electric vehicles are nice, but not of our business, right? They're saying we are trying to set up a very explicit and a very active role in all these transitional things. And that's why they are building charging infrastructure. And we are the operator of this charging infrastructure. And right now we operate around about 50 charging points there. So on the streets of Großglockner. And it will be ramped up to, I don't know, 200 charging points in the next 1 or 2 years. So it's a huge project for us, and it is very, very substantial responsibility in that region for us. And we are super happy about having this customer. Great. And being responsible for these charging points.
Amazing.
So just in numbers, you mentioned this project, and in total, how many charging points?
Right now we are operating around about 2,000 charging points.
Wow.
And I would say this makes us to one of the biggest charge point operators in Austria. I'm quite proud of that, because our team and we were super active, and we are super motivated and ambitious on the market. And by getting so many charging points, in addition to building our own software and environment, I think quite a good thing, yeah.
Super good. And we can see that you are a young entrepreneurial with a great team, young team too, very innovative. So you also are making research with the academia, with our university too, the TEB, the Technical University of Vienna, and you are exploring with B2G, right? So how is this project going, and what outcomes are you expecting of this research?
So what you just mentioned it a bit earlier. You said all the electric vehicles and all the vehicles that we have in Austria, right? So in speaking in numbers, it's around about 5 million vehicles.
Oh.
And right now we have electric vehicle shares. I think it's around about 3 or 4%. I think rather 4%.
Share
of 5 million.
Just about the stats, I think Austria has the biggest number of vehicles per person, right? It's about 2, I think, if you go into the number.
No, it can't be, because we have around about 9 million people, as far as I'm informed.
Yeah.
And we have 5 million vehicles, so...
As a whole also, and how much you think it will be the EV?
It's around about 4%.
4%, wow.
So at the very and bloody beginning.
Yeah,
that's a fact. But what is the perspective of the idea of vehicle to grid? Is it at some point of time we will have battery, and that means potential storages everywhere. And if they connect it to a system, then they can somehow create a virtual power plant, buffering and storing energy and storing it if we have too much in the grid, and getting it out of the batteries if the grid needs some support.
Amazing. Okay.
That's amazing, and this is somehow the idea of vehicle to grid. And in this ecosystem, you need to somehow fulfill, or you need to settle certain items, because you have hardware and software from the vehicles, which is quite complex and quite diversified, I would say. Then you have charging stations, hardware and software. Then you have the grid operator. You have an energy supplier, which is somehow involved as well. And at the top layer, you should have some company, which is KW Solutions in that case, to integrate, to aggregate. And that's right, and that's somehow the idea of this project and of our research and development. And we were building a consortium containing out of TEB, so Technical University of Vienna, Forschung Burgenland, so it's derived Burgenland, Fachhochschule Burgenland, and the company KEBA, which are producing AC and DC charging infrastructure. And together we try to shed some light on how it can work in the future and what needs to be done in terms of interoperabilities that we are getting this topic into reality in Austria. So it's like a moderation and investigation process of vehicle to grid. We are doing hardware testing as well, so not only in theory but as well in practice, and we're super excited. It's highly interesting.
Sure. And do you see in the future that this service can be sold? I mean, to provide this at the end to the grid from the vehicles, aggregating storage to supply to the grid. Do you see in the future that could be a paid service for the electrical car owners?
My view, yes. absolutely. Because I would think it is quite sad if we cannot start managing and operating all the batteries in the vehicles. I don't know. Why is it so difficult? Because of warranty reasons right now? I don't know. It seems to be a bit strange for me because we have a lot of storage, conventional storage batteries. They have these warranty issues not. So I guess it can be sold. And what is the business case behind that? It's more or less going about arbitrage.
Yeah.
So you have two channels of selling electricity or two channels of addressing this business case. On the one hand, you have the normal energy market. That means, so coming from the spot market, you can buy electricity from your energy supplier when it's cheap.
Yeah.
For example, during the summer, during the afternoon hours where sun is burning.
Okay.
Yeah. So energy is cheap. In some cases, it is even negative. That means
prices, yeah.
you get paid when you consume energy.
Yeah.
So you can use making your battery full, and then when it's more expensive out there, for example, in the evening, or at lunchtime, or at the in the morning, you can sell it.
Okay.
It provides you with the possibility of arbitrage. And then you have a second option, which is the grid market, where you could potentially participate, which is basically following an equivalent logic. But all these business cases need to be moderated, they need to be conceptualized, and they need to... So someone needs to start trying to getting these business cases in reality.
Yeah, and I see there's a lot of, we emphasize that at the Energy Bridge about bridging all the different value chain in the energy industry and having collaboration together, and you have a very successful case. And also with the nature of your business, you talk to a lot of different clients and you have to collaborate. What do you think about collaboration in this industry? What are the challenges? And I mean, you are successfully bridging it, but it must with some challenges.
Yeah. So I'm quite open about these things because we are trying hard to somehow building bridges as well. Because we cannot do it on our own. That's for sure. We're not going to make it on our own. We need collaborations.
Yeah.
And what we see is that it is very, very hard to getting into contact with car manufacturers.
Yeah.
Because I feel that they cannot earn money with that, and though they are not interested in it. For example, are you interested in somehow getting into this project, doing this or that? No response, or just no.
No, they are business as usual. They want to sell cars.
Yes, we want to sell cars. We want to make margins on based on selling, but no innovation. Yeah. It's way too far away from me. Yeah. So car manufacture is difficult. We see a good progress with manufacturers of the hardware of the charging stations, but this is working. And what I want to say and emphasize as well is many people are always blaming or not speaking so well about net operating companies, but I need to say that we are getting great support of net operation companies. They're super interested in all these things, and they're super collaborative, and they are going into piloting these things with us as well. So that's very positive.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I think more and more value chain needs to come together, collaborate more, so that more successful projects and the case studies could come. And now that we started talking about challenges of the industry, also going a bit more about the regulatory hurdles that you have to overcome and that you are still overcoming, that you see in the industry, which could be eased out a bit.
Yeah, so I think the regulatory framework, it is as it is, right? I think it's a framework where we can work in, so where we can work within it quite properly right now. So of course there are things added, like we have had this AFIR regulation, then we have had this Kraftstoffverordnung where CO2 becomes a price, right? Like we are able to sell CO2 emission certificates now, which is positive, I would say. It's a bureaucracy monster, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's.
But in the end, we get a couple of cents for each and every kilowatt hour, which is nice.
How much is it, the CO2 ton in price?
So it's and if you ask 10 people for the price, you get 10 different prices. In the beginning, it started in 2023. It was around about 20 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So it was tremendously high. And everyone thought like, okay, I'm getting more money as I'm paying for the electricity. So that's weird, right? But it was somehow going down strongly, and now it's a high one-digit number.
Okay, so
5, 6, 7, 8, 10 cents, something about that. That's the regulatory aspects. But what I see as a huge topic right now is we have in Europe and in specific in Austria very, very, very substantial uncertainties. I feel like that on the one hand the car manufacturers, but on the other hand politicians and the people do not have a real understanding of where to go, right? Is our future based on electrification? So is it based on electric vehicles? Or are we still moving forward with combustion engines, right? So with fossil fuels? I don't know. I think this is not a good situation because it leads to the fact that neither our car manufacturers in Europe nor the surrounding companies are competing well. And if you compare this situation with Chinese companies, so they have a very, very clear way forward. And I know it has, so each system has disadvantages.
Yeah.
But in terms of technology, in terms of driving this industry, they're getting more and more advantage of the rest of the world.
Aligned, all the industry, it's with one goal. And in Western world, maybe we are just in this critical point of choosing which way will be developed. So we are going for electrification too. So.
And just on that point, on competitiveness of European industries and the ecosystem and competing Chinese manufacturers, you think what could be more to be done here to make sure that have the healthy competition? You still have a lot of Chinese manufacturers. They have research happening in Europe and they are selling here. Coming from Europe, how can they compete with that? Because, I mean, as you said, they have a tunnel focus and they have been progressing really well. But still, you said the government has to make a choice. But what more from the industry itself that can be done to still remain competitive?
So I guess it is a strongly top-down driven topic. So at the top, you should have politicians who say that we are committed to mobility and energy transition. And from that, you can derive that fossil fuels or fossil-driven vehicles should come to an end as soon as possible. And
there are some manufacturers, Renault maybe or others, Volvo, they said, or we're not going to make more internal combustion engines in 2030, 2040 or something. There are some goals around, but it's not political, it's for the industry.
There are these goals, but what happens is then you have, so I feel like that, so you have in Europe, you have a certain amount of far-right political parties, right? And they are very strongly pro-fossil fuels, pro-combustion engine, etc. Not talking about that now, but and that leads to the circumstance that the more moderate parties try to go a bit into this direction as well. And this leads to the mixture that we have in our political landscape. And this mixture or these uncertainties lead to the fact that the companies do not really know for sure where to go. Are we going left or are we going right? And this, of course, indicates two streams of development, two streams of manufacturing, two streams of sales, and this is totally two different ecosystems. And this is very demanding to maintain.
Yeah, this is something that we are trying to bridge also with the policymakers, because in these fields, as energy and electrification and all these decisions are long-term investment. So you need certainty and a long-term plan. So what we are trying to do also is to bring this knowledge and this data to the policymakers too, to make them understand why do we have to move forward in this direction. So it's very impressive what they're doing. And
are there any, just on that note, what Daniel was saying, are there any particular frameworks which is going on in European Union which are good, which is making, like for example, we were looking at a couple of acts driven by European Union, and there are a couple of funds which are for EV and making sure that the EV is going in the right direction. Are you able to take advantage of that somehow?
I think we were used to have these things a couple of years ago in the course of the Green Deal, but in my subjective perception, these things, so for example, giving CO2 a price, a certain price, or going into a, 2035 clear strategy of
incentives, some incentives.
These things are getting more and more delayed, right?
Yeah, you mentioned how you see the policies here in Europe. How do you see that is being developed in Asia, for example, China, or in the States? How do you see the comparison these three markets?
It's a difficult question. So I feel like that, for example, in China, that they have the feeling that the big chance was coming now, right? Because what they perceive is a Western world which is not clear about the strategy, and that means that they have a huge chance about going only into one field of technology, and this is electric vehicles. And they already have so many tech companies, very substantiated, very well-known tech companies over there. And this can be extended, but only by going into one technology. And this is a huge chance. And of course, this is incentivized strongly by policymakers with subsidies and whatever. But this leads to very strong numbers. And I think they have right now 37% of all newly licensed vehicles are full electric vehicles.
Wow.
So, and then you have a certain amount of hybrid vehicles as well. So I guess you're already at more than 50% of electrified vehicles which are getting newly licensed. These are very strong numbers.
Yeah, and in the States, how do you see it?
I think in the States, so we were having a look at the numbers just before that podcast. You have around about 10% of newly licensed cars which are fully electric, and in Europe, around about 20, or 15 to 20%.
Okay.
So that's a significant gap.
Yeah.
And also, apart from regulatory barriers, are there any other barriers that you're facing that can be overcome somehow? What are the challenges that you're facing in the market?
The challenges that we're facing in the market, so I think the other challenges are pretty much operational challenges. And they can be overcome by good and innovative and ambitious companies. For example, it's like when we're building infrastructure, then we always have the topic of do we get sufficient net operation infrastructure or net operation capacities? Because you need to have cables beneath the earth, right? So that's a quite physical topic, right? It's not like that you say, oh, you would like to have a 300 kilowatt charger over there and just do it. No, you need to have the power for that. And that means it needs alignment with net operating companies. But this is, in my view, very, very operational and can be overcome with or by ambitious companies.
Yeah, and young companies too. I mean, something that we want to address that is a big challenge, but it's to reach these small companies which are making innovation and to showcase them. I mean, to energy transition is also with new companies, young companies that are more agile. They are with all tools, with AI, with all innovation. So this is something that we share. This vision that they have to be showcased somehow.
Yeah, they have to.
But they are small and hidden around, and spread. So we want to.
That's why your initiative is so great.
Hey Corby, before we get into the closing arguments, I want to tell everyone as well that I've been an ambassador of KW Solutions for 1.5 years. I have a T-shirt of KW Solutions which is super and fits me very well, and I hope you're gonna give me more.
Yeah, can we bring this into the video as well?
Yeah.
As you can see, it's fantastic.
So I think we covered a lot of the industry. We really admire your vision and ambition with this. Climate change is a huge battle. So it's necessary to be together and to work together and collaborate. So maybe you can. What is how this industry will evolve in Austria?
That's I would say, but a very interesting question. So deriving it from my personal perception and from my personal understanding, I would say, so for me personally, this is the absolute sweet to work at. Why? Because it is, as we said it in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. It is somehow an intersection of doing something good for the world, helping in somehow accelerating the mobility and energy transition, which is absolutely necessary on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have all these business-related topics, like how to ramp up the company properly, how to somehow make it profitable, right? These are very, very business and related topics, which is super exciting. And with doing green tech, these two components can be somehow combined, and this makes it, for me, as a somehow liberal person who likes the environment a lot, makes it super exciting and interesting.
Amazing. And what are your goals for KW Solutions in the next years?
So we want to keep on the track where we are currently at. So we want to get more and more charging stations into our systems. We want to build more and more multi-family houses, and we want to help our end customers, for example, especially in the multi-family houses, by understanding energy markets in a better way on the one hand, and on the other hand, saving money with each and every charging transaction. So I guess this is the big goal. We want to help our customers by saving money in each and every charging transaction, because this is the best fundament for making the mobility transition real.
That's amazing. And on that note, I want to thank you, Corby, for doing this interview. And we see the vision of KW Solution. It's pretty much that should be vision of everyone, to have the energy transition and accelerate it as much as we can. Thank you, and it's been an honor.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having for having us in this in your office, and we invite the community to stay tuned for the next interviews with amazing people as Corby and his team. So
keep an eye on these guys.
Okay, so see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.